who pinned the end of their calendar to the 2012 alignment of the sun in the center of the galaxy. It's like a universal awareness that when certain things align, the sun and this mysterious dark core of humanity. The next image in this series shows the same divine cross, terrestrial cross at the top, and below it appears to be a boat, an ark, and it's sort of a casual reference back to God's promise that you don't use water this time, it'll be fire. So the idea of the bark or the boat here is what spiritual authority will save us.
I find that so many deluges and deep floods shall befall the world before the universal conflagration, that there shall be scarcely any land that is not covered by water. The rains in many countries shall be so slight, and so much fire, and so many meteorites shall fall from the sky, that nothing shall remain that is not consumed.
Image 72 is probably the warning of what is going to happen if we don't do this thing right. You notice, first off, the Wheel of Fortune at the top no longer has any spokes. It's empty. That means that time has ended. It is no longer turning. There's no axle. I think most people don't realize how quickly things are about to change, but they are, and it's going to be a white-knuckle ride.
And you'll find that if you look at the zodiac and the four corners of the zodiac, there's something very interesting about its configuration in heavens. This is the Milky Way. It crosses two places only on the ecliptic, here and here. And you'll notice that it's right next to the eagle. In fact, it's a very important place because this, the Milky Way, actually does in fact appear like a serpent. This is its mouth, its eye, and the tail that's going into its mouth. There's it enhanced for you. And I'm still facing the same way here. There's the mouth and the tail going into the mouth. Here's a close-up of the same thing. And the eagle appears right over its head. This is galactic central point. We're looking at the galaxy that we're in at a very shallow angle, on edge. And this is where the center of the galaxy is. And this always is there on this ecliptic point. It doesn't move along here, neither does this side. It's always fixed here. The only thing that moves is our perspective as we move through here when we look at the sun. We're just going around the sun, and we're sighting the sun through the zodiac through every year. And this is basically where the eagle would appear. Now, I'm sure people are going to start seeing a similarity between the myth of the phoenix rising from the ashes of his demise, a glowing pyre, and being reborn is crossed by the galaxy in two places. Then it becomes very significant then if we actually sight it during one of the cardinal points of our year, say an equinox or a solstice. In fact, it's so significant that you'll actually, if you understand this, go back into history, you'll be able to mark this point in time here that takes. It's actually a quaternary point through the precession that lasts 25,920 years. Divide it in four places, it'll actually equal 6,480 years. You'll find that if you go back from now, 6,480 years, you're ending up in the place where historians peg civilization actually has, having been born, almost out of nothing. Go back another 6,480 years, you'll end up in every time with a configuration that looks like this. Geologists actually mark that year of two quaternary precessions with the division between the Pleistocene and the Holocene, where there was a massive global die-off. This is what this looks like. When you reach the point of the precession where you're at that middle place, where the sun's rising in the center of the galaxy, this is how the ecliptics align to it. And this will occur one day out of the whole year, but when this is aligned to one of our equinoxes or our solstices, it takes on extreme significance. Because you have all the symbols connect at the same time. Here you have the primordial mound that the Egyptians were talking about, the nest of fire that the phoenix is born from, the sun rising in the nest, activating it, the center of the galaxy, and the ecliptic running through here. And if this is aligned with the solstice or an equinox, all the points are matching, because what it means is we've moved through a quarter of the precession, and big things happen then. As I was saying, if you start from 2012 and move back 6,480 years, you end up at the birth of history and civilization. Move back again, the same distance, the division between the Pleistocene and the Holocene, and a massive die-off of more than 90% of the flora and fauna in North America and Europe. Move back again, height of the glacial epoch, and before that, you can actually find no trace of the more ancient hominids. Mankind, Homo sapiens, seems to have been installed here on the Earth. And I'm not saying that we were put here from space, but it seems that we didn't have much competition after that point. This is when this symbol will happen again, on the winter solstice, 2012. Now I get into something that's heavier. Everyone, I think, if they connect 2012 to prophecy, will understand that there's something to do with the Mayan calendar. This is actually the sunstone. It's an Aztec calendar that they borrowed from the Maya. It was buried by the Spanish in Tenochtitlan and not discovered for maybe 200 years. It's about 12 feet across. It's huge. It weighs about 5 tons. They buried it, and then it was rediscovered in the 1700s, and interestingly enough, you can actually, not the 1700s, don't quote me on this, but you can actually see here that they've recorded these 4 little destructive epochs on the Earth. Each one of these represents 6,480 years in between each one, and a destructive epoch. One by flood, one by fire, one by animals or something, and there's one by earthquakes. And there's one left, because the calendar ends here. It just so happens that we know now what that's all about when it comes to how the galaxy is aligned with the ecliptic and how that aligns with the solstice. It just so happens that that's the solstice. Here you have Quetzalcoatl, the serpent god who lives in the heavens. His name actually means a feathered serpent, so that's an allusion to the idea that he's up in heaven. And he has a guy protruding from his head. This guy hasn't been eaten. He's willingly leaving the body because he's an avatar. He's a manifestation in human form of this great serpent god that lives in heaven. And that's in fact why Cortez was able to pull one over on Montezuma so easily, because Montezuma was actually anticipating a man coming from another place to set a new age into motion, to actually come and set into motion a golden age. It's the same sort of idea that the Freemasons have of moving from out of one order into a next order. And here, this is from the book of Revelation, and it said that this tail is sweeping 1/3 of the stars from heaven. Well, 1/3 of anything from 100% is 33.33. And we know that 33.33 on the Earth in degrees is 2,012 miles, 0.9, to get really specific. That puts you right in the ballpark of this. Same date.